Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, I will talk about how to separate notes when playing the clarinet. This video builds off the previous video on embouchure and Airstream, so make sure you check that out if you have not done so already. And as always, if there is any topic you would like covered or you have any questions, please drop a comment below. Alright, let's get started. When separating notes on the clarinet, you simply use your tongue. The tongue interrupts the Airstream you've already created, but does not stop it. Each note needs to sound like a long note that is simply interrupted by the tongue. Something my professor likes to say is that the air should lead the tongue and the fingers. Recall from the previous video how when we breathe in we say, and you feel it in your abdomen, and then you breathe out and you say, that same principle still applies here. Also remember, when getting ready to produce the Airstream, we do this exercise where we feel the space in the jaw, and then we hum. That right there will get your tongue into the right position it needs to be in to articulate notes on the clarinet. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is teach you the proper syllable for tonguing. The tongue is a muscle that needs to be trained like any other muscle you would train. It needs to have proper form. So the first thing I want you to do is say ni, ni. And you should kind of feel how your tongue is between your top teeth, ni, ni. And then from here, say di, 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 di. That is the syllable we're going for. So we're not saying D, 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 because notice how the tongue comes under the top teeth to say D, D. We're not saying T, T either, because that's kind of aspirated, so the tongue is kind of rolling up and coming down. We want to avoid that. So say D, 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 and feel the tongue going between the top teeth. This keeps the tongue in the same position as you were doing the Airstream exercise with that. Alright, now grab your mouthpiece and barrel. The point at which your tongue should make contact with the reed is about right here to start. It's important that the tip of the tongue makes contact with the reed, but you want to make sure you're not folding your tongue out like this. That can cause uneven and harsh articulations. You should kind of feel where it just comes out naturally. And remember, D, 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 D. Alright, I will now model this using two half notes. So the first thing we're going to do is remember, feel the space. Now I will model this on open G. So notice how when I articulate, the air does not stop. The tongue simply just interrupts the Airstream. It's important to maintain steady air, consistent tone, and a stable embouchure when articulating on the clarinet. Do not let the embouchure compress inward, as that will affect the tone quality. The mouth needs to stay open for air to effectively pass through. It is also important to not drop the tongue in between notes, as that will affect the sound quality and the pitch. For example, here I kind of just kind of bounced up and down. So it's important to keep the tongue in the same position. Now there is a misconception sometimes that for articulating on the clarinet, the syllable needs to be do, 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 do. But notice how when I say that, my tongue is already folding inward. And that's how that translates to the instrument as well. There's almost kind of a ricochet feeling with the tongue there. I'm now going to show some examples of other incorrect articulation. So this is what it sounds like when you stop the air. Remember, the tongue should simply just be pulling away and interrupting the Airstream. Now this is what it sounds like if you tongue too low on the reed. In doing so, you drop the tongue from its proper position, which then lowers the pitch of the sound that you're making. This is what harsh tonguing might sound like. The easiest way to remember is to think of the tongue touching something hot, the reed, and pulling away fast. If you ever get stuck, always return to humming. Feel the space in the jaw. Remember what the embouchure should feel like. And then remember breathing in. And then remember our syllable. D, 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 D. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day.